flour and bread prices that are reported to have been increasing, leaving many Cameroonians to wonder what the future holds with respect to bread that is consumed by almost every family in Cameroon, especially those living within our urban settings in the country. We are going to be looking at what actually is wrong with this. Where is this coming from, and do we have the possibility of solving this menace that is before us? And that is why we are discussing this morning with Dr. Tata, who is an expert in the domain. He's already doing something, proposing palpable solutions to what we are now faced with. Doctor, we're glad to have you with us this morning.
Thank you very much. It's always a pleasure.
Cameroon is faced with an acute problem with increase in bread and related product prices. What actually is not well with bread and flour today? Where is this coming from?
Yes, there are quite a couple of reasons that we face in this situation. Of course, it's something that was very predictable because you notice that the quantity of import that we are experiencing in Cameroon up to the extent of about 900,000 tons is too much for a nation to be depending on an external source of something as important as wheat flour, because you would notice that Cameroonians consume a lot of bread, so that is why we're importing that much. So, but as a matter of fact, if we from the onset had focused on sourcing this flour locally, I think we wouldn't have been here. So the first point where we can point as the source is the fact that we made the decision to be importing that quantity of flour, and of course the second reason is because of the political scuffling between the Russia and Ukraine. So it must be understood that Cameroon imports more than 580,000 tons of flour from Russia, and of course a couple of other foods. So if you're importing this quantity of food from Russia, which is at war, then you would obviously expect that there should be some disturbance in the distribution of their products. So that is why Cameroon is facing some of these challenges, and of course other reasons associated.
Yeah, but what is the implication of what we are facing today? It means that if we are dependent on other countries for other food sources, and should these countries find themselves in the situation of Russia and Ukraine, we would suffer also, we would suffer double.
Yeah, that is logically what it actually means. You see, Cameroon is even not the only country that is suffering from this challenge. The effect is more intense in the north of Africa, because you would notice that the countries in the north of Africa they consume a lot of grains imported from Russia. You have Tunisia, you have Egypt, you have Libya, and so on. Those countries are at the top of Africa. Especially those Arab countries, they consume a lot of grains generally. So they are actually having the pain much more than even what Cameroon is facing. They consume a lot more flour, because you see a lot of those countries, they eat a lot more bread than what Cameroon actually does. So yes, if other countries should have issues with foods that are associated, that Cameroon imports, if they should have any issue, then there'll be a problem in Cameroon. You would remember that during the coronavirus, where the borders were temporarily closed down, so we had a lot of challenges being able to even send out some of our raw materials, and of course being able to import food. So it is not over yet. Some of the measures are still in place. So this is a kind of a cumulative effect that we are now facing.
Yes, but how do we understand that we are faced with an acute food crisis when we are a typically agricultural country?
Yeah, that is the really that is what really baffles everybody, because you see, we are not intentional in our governance in Cameroon. We are not intentional, because if we're intentional and we're visionary, then we would have, of course, noticed that we can actually take advantage of the blessings that nature has provided to us. Cameroon is popularly used by politicians as Africa in miniature, looking at its agricultural diversity. It's also very fertile. We have our volcanic soils. We basically lack very little when it comes to agriculture in Cameroon. So it's about the will to be able to put into use. Remember that Cameroon, 60% of Cameroon is made up of youths who are below the age of 25 years. And this tells us that it's not even because Cameroon has an aging population, because we have the human capital is already available. What actually we would need to do is to probably mechanize the agriculture to make it attractive to young people, because young people like machines. Young people like things that have been mechanized, that are easier to do. So probably we need to move into the point where we have to mechanize the agriculture rather than staying subsistence, so that it could be attractive. And then I'm sure from there we can be able to get a way forward.
Okay, we did a report on what actually obtains on the field with our reporter Joy, to tell us what people are saying with the current situation. Can we have the report by Joy Ngong? Seemingly the report is not yet ready. Why do we have flour prices increasing, and seemingly the government is not treating it as a crisis? So have you seen the government actually worry about this?
Yes, you see, I mean, we're living in a time where we can. It's difficult to tell, to sense what the state feels as far as what is happening on the ground. It's really difficult to tell, because not being able to tell what the state feels about the increasing prices is not the only challenge that there are quite a lot of social issues that the population probably had expected response. So, but that notwithstanding, the idea is it doesn't matter what the state feels at this point in time, or the government feels at this point in time. What really matters is what Cameroonians can do in order to reduce the effect of this unfortunate situation, because we know the theory of it. We have an idea about why the prices may be increasing.
Yeah, but we have an idea, because we have knowledge on the principle of demand and supply. More the demand and less supply, the price would move up. But what is the mechanism for price increase? Do we just assume that, okay, this thing has become scarce and we increase prices at our level without necessarily getting a green light from the government?
You see, first of all, I will start by saying that, you see, if you even go and interrogate why we're importing wheat flour in the first place, then I think it should give you an idea about why there is no statement from government, or why we're not getting clear response as to the government coming out through communications minister to explain to Cameroonians why situations are like this. There is no scientific backing as to why we consume or we import wheat flour. Why do I say so? Because wheat flour is less healthier than the local flours we have, the alternative flours. Afro Brains Cameroon produces cassava flour, sweet potato flour, plantain flour, and so on. We produce a wide variety of flours. All these flours that are produced by Afro Brains Cameroon can do and even more what wheat flour does. And Afro Brains Cameroon probably is not the only institution in Cameroon that produces these flours. But one thing which is for sure is we don't understand why we are importing 900,000 tons of flour every year. If you look at statistics on the post-harvest loss in plantain, for example, 50% of the plantain that we cultivate in Cameroon go wasted. What this means is that if we cultivate 1 million tons of plantains, what that means is that 500,000 tons of plantains go wasted. This is alarming. Now, you see, if we have this much waste and we are still importing this much, if you go to sweet potatoes and you evaluate the production in Cameroon and evaluate the post-harvest loss, if you go to cassavas, you evaluate the production in Cameroon and you evaluate the post-harvest loss, you would realize that we produce so much and we consume so little, and we even succeed in exporting even much little. So the question is, why are we importing wheat flour, 900,000 tons, when we have so much waste in what we produce locally? So what this means is that it is not because Cameroon cannot meet up with the availability or supply of flour in the market for the production of bread, cakes, and whatever. It is not that. It is simply because probably there are business people who want to occupy that space, business people who want to own that space, who want to steal the food industry in Cameroon, probably for personal benefits.
Okay, let's take a listen to this report by Joengo.
Bread crisis in Cameroon has intensified as days go by with no concrete measures put in place by the government. With more city dwellers boycotting the consumption of bread, local bread delivery men have equally threatened to strike in the city of Vola. They are very much unhappy with the reduction in their profits after the rise in the price of bread in bakeries. No bread delivery since March 22 in several areas in Douala and other towns of the country. The bread delivery men parked their bikes to protest, demanding a re-evaluation of their margins before they can resume delivery. The crisis situation all started with the rise in the price of bread. Since last week, the 200 grams loaf of bread has moved from 125 francs to 150 francs CFA. An increase that follows the soaring prices of raw material, especially flour, in the market.
The increase in the price of flour I have had for 5,000 francs, and now is affecting our business because at first we were selling it at 125 rand. We have more customers, but now we are selling it at 150 while we have low customer. And we are really suffering.
Unacceptable to both the intermediaries and the consumers who see their profits collapse and their consumption level dropping respectively.
Nous sommes obligés maintenant, si vous avez à l'époque 5 enfants à la maison, vous achetez par exemple 5.
We are now obliged as parents. If you have 5 children, you buy 5 bread at 125 francs each for 625. Now, with the increase, it's a problem. 750 francs is too much. The government should try to solve this problem.
Je pense que le gouvernement essaie de voir ce problème.
As a result, bakeries have been forced to produce in small quantities and even to reduce the size of some flour products to fit the income of consumers, such that it is a win on both ends.
It have affected other products because, like for example, this croissant, they have reduced it. People are not buying cake. Yes, they have also reduced it. It's too small now. People are not buying. They are complaining. Pangolais also. Even that one for 50, that bread for 50, they have even added for 60 francs, and people are not buying. That's it there. all the blocks and the boxes are full. They have not buy anything.
Highly disappointed Cameroonians hope that the government will look for ways to appease them.
You wake up in the morning, the price of bread have changed. You wake up in the morning, you go to the market, the price of cheese has changed. There's no provision, there's no communication, there's nothing. We have also remarked that every time that we are organized, there's a competition, there's the can, there's something like that. There's always something like this change. There's always something that's in that come. The price change because Cameroon have organized the kind. The price change. Cameroon have done this, the price change. The Cameroon national football team just traveled to play a competition. When they come back, price of something has changed. The last time this was the fuel. The last time it was the fuel that have changed. Now it's bread. After it's rice. After it's this. So, and there's no communication. There's no provision. You are just here. Things have changed. Things has changed. Price has changed. Price has changed. And you are just under the facts. Even if you want to talk, you don't know where to talk.
At the start of the year 2022, economists had warned of a possible inflation, which is now materializing, with many sectors threatening to protest in recent weeks, reasons for which mostly reside around bad governance. The teachers of the public sector with the Enough is Enough movement alleged protests from health workers and announced protests by the university lecturers. Then, a few days ago, went circulating on social media a release from workers in the transport sector whose meeting was disrupted in Yaoundé. Consumers' rights associations fear that a stalemate in these strike actions could lead to large-scale disruption of the entire Cameroonian economy.
Yes, thank you very much, Joy Ngong, for that great report. Now, one of those who spoke in the report says that you sleep and tomorrow you are told that there is a change in price, no communication. Nobody actually understands what is happening. Like you say, it is because of the war that is ongoing in Europe, Russia, and Ukraine, which has reduced the capacity for these countries to export to Cameroon and other African countries. And then that is the situation. Why not communicate and see how these things could be balanced and explain to the population?
Yes, thank you for that question. You see, there's a lack of information, it's deformation. Mm-hmm. We're guessing, you know. We're guessing there's no formal position. The government has not come out to actually inform the people this is the situation. We are just looking at theoretical possibilities. Mm-hmm. But like I indicated, it is only when we understand why we are importing wheat flour in the first place that we will know whether people could just be taking advantage of the fact that there's a war. You know, people are very smart. People are intelligent. People could just know that, okay, if there's war here, why don't we say that because of this war, the prices have gone up? It's just more money for them. And there's no other logical explanation because they are the ones who have the information, you know. So what I would rather want us to focus our attention on is for us to begin to look at solutions within. It is an opportunity because maybe they want to make more money. But why don't we Cameroonians look at it?
When we look at the striking bread suppliers in the city of Douala, you saw them who say that the profit margins have reduced drastically. Is this not a wake-up call for them to also source for different avenues of raw material for bread?
Yes, I think that is the question I was expecting to have come really, really long time. Mm-hmm. You see, why are we even consuming wheat flour? Why are we insisting on producing our bread with wheat flour? There is no reason. Wheat flour is not as healthy as cassava flour and sweet potato flour. We don't have to produce our bread with wheat flour. We don't need to. There is nothing that compels us to produce our bread with wheat flour. We have just probably been addicted to wheat flour, or somebody somehow has decided that we should be, we should get used to wheat flour so that there's no way we can withdraw from wheat flour. How is it possible that we have a flour here called wheat flour, and we have cassava flour, we have sweet potato flour? These are delicious natural products that we cultivate back home here in Cameroon. And if we push on for people, for bakeries, for all those who are involved in the transformation of these flours into finished products, into bread, cakes, and all those things, if we push on and see that we use these flours to produce our finished products, our bread, and so what would that mean? That would mean that we'll create more jobs, we'll create more profit. Their profit margins will increase. If they think that their profit margins are going down, it is very simple. It's not rocket science. All they need to do is turn around and start producing your bread with sweet potato flour, with cassava flour, and talk with people who are specialists in that. You can even produce a blend. It is possible for us to mimic wheat flour using our natural products, using cereals and sweet potato flour or cassava flour in order to mimic wheat flour. There's practically no reason why we are insisting on producing our breads and other those products with wheat flour. There's practically no reason. If we want to, because of course there are people in Cameroon who are suffering from autoimmune health issues, but without knowing that it is caused by the wheat flour. Because you see, wheat flour has gluten. Gluten is a kind of protein that some people, a very minute population though, it's not much, some people's systems see that gluten as a disease. So the people's system starts reacting to it, and then it causes problems in the people's intestines. So that is a situation that is scientifically proven with gluten. So gluten is not all that healthy. It doesn't happen to everybody though, but however, cassava flour is an option, it's an alternative. Sweet potato flour is an alternative that can be used to produce bread, has been proven to be very nice, natural and delicious in the production of bread. So instead of us going to ask ourselves the question, what caused it, or is it government, or is it this, it's very simple. We just advise. The government might be silent to see how the people can produce, what solutions the people will bring, so that they can now come and have the final say. So that's what I feel. So why don't we just advise those in the bread industry, just turn around and use cassava flour, put your prices, just reduce the price of your bread and see whether people are not going to buy it. Because normally if you are using a locally produced flour, you realize that the price of your bread will reduce slightly because you're sourcing it locally. So what will happen is that at the end of the day, those people who embrace sweet potato flour, those people who embrace cassava flour will be the ones to lead that industry in the final at the end. So instead of insisting on the government coming to spend money to subvent, what is the point of subventing? There's no need for the government to subvent. If I were in the government, I would discourage the government to even come and subvent anything. We have sweet potato flour, we have cassava flour in Cameroon. Let those who are in charge in that industry, let them turn around and use that, because it is only when they start to use the locally produced flours that it will create opportunity for those local producers like Afro Brains Cameroon, for us to start supplying those products to them. But you see, one other interesting part of this whole thing is that those who import, they have agreements with these people who produce. Those who import, because they import on demand, so they have agreements with these people. So it's something that Cameroonians will need some time in order to understand exactly what is happening. But in the meantime, what I advise us to, the position for Cameroonians to take is that advise those who are baking, those who are into baking of bread and cakes and all those things, let them begin to use the locally sourced, the locally produced flours. I think that's going to address the issue very easily. It's going to address the issue, but we are talking about feeding an entire nation with potato and cassava and host of other locally produced raw material for bread. Where do we start from? We need to now call on mothers and fathers, group them together to be able to do mass production. We already have, for example, what Afro Brains is doing. We already have a database of more than 600 farmers. Yes. This database of more than 600 farmers, if you sum up what they have indicated that they produce, you realize that it is not very far from what we have. If you look at the quantity of sweet potato that Cameroon produces each year, if you look at the post-harvest loss, which means that when all the sweet potato has been produced, what fraction of that sweet potato goes wasted, like getting rotten and so on, before that which is consumed or that which is sold in the market. If you look at plantains, like I indicated before, the plantain that is produced in Cameroon, 50% of it gets wasted. What that means is, if we are producing 1 million tons of plantains, 500,000 tons of plantains get wasted. That's a lot of plantains. So what I'm saying is, if we begin to work with the local transformers, if we come together and see that, okay, let us scale transformation. Let us scale the transformation of our locally produced crops. What will happen is the amount of flour in the market is going to be much. For the raw materials are available. The only thing we have to work on is on transformation, scaling of the transformation, to see that we can transform in huge and larger.
Its dough has elastic toughness that holds its shape well once baked. So she says the reason why I don't eat bread almost killed me. Potato bread is the best. But this is information that you are giving out to Cameroonians. Why have we not been educated on this all this while? Are we still going to blame it on these huge wheat importers?
Yeah, I mean, this is information that is available out there. Everybody can have access. Like I always say, we are in the age of information. And information is not what we would go to school to get anymore. Gone are those days where a teacher knew everything and would come and recite it and we rewrite it. We live in a world where by a few buttons you press on your phone, you can have access to any information. The most important thing in the world in which we live right now is, how do we use information? We have information at our fingertips, but how do we use it? How do we apply it? So yes, we have come to know that actually our local flours are healthier than the flour that we are importing. So it is for us now to begin to take the decision. Which flour are we going to, which of the products are we going to start patronizing? So those who are involved in the bakeries, those who are baking, they should start getting in touch with those who produce flours locally, instead of continuing to put pressure. You see, I just watched the report that is saying that the distributors of bread are going on strike. They are striking against who? You understand? So all they should do is that tell those who are producing the bread, buy local bread. Cameroonians have not refused to eat it. That's the point.
Yeah, but now most of our mothers who are farming potatoes in the villages in the west, northwest, and other regions may still be doing so just to consume and sell what they can in the local markets just for consumption. But if a ready market is guaranteed to them through Afro Brains, as well as others, they may now get more Intensifies, produce more, maybe double production, or redirect what they are into.
Yeah, I mean, what you're saying makes a lot of sense. Of course, that is exactly the reaction. That is what is going to happen. Once the farmers know that there is a ready market for their products, they would double what they have. We have the database of farmers that we have. They have a good number of them have come to us and have said, okay, I want to know that I'm going to have a market. I said, yes, you have a market. Okay, so we are going to double our size. So we have a lot of land in Cameroon which is arable. So it's not an issue of arable land. First of all, it takes just about 80 to 90 days to cultivate the Georgette a variety of sweet potatoes. What that means is that even if Cameroon should say now that we want to stop the importation of wheat flour, we will still be able to produce flour locally that will replace the flour that we are talking of, the wheat flour which was supposed to be imported. 900,000 tons. It's not much. 900,000 tons is not that much for Cameroon to actually be able to produce. If you look at, like I continue to emphasize, if you look at the post-harvest loss, the amount of flour that we waste every year, the amount of sweet potato, the amount of cassavas, and so on. If you look at the quantity that we waste each year, you would notice that there is room for us to replace the wheat flour which we have, which we import every year. And like I said before, the core is those who produce the bread, because you would see that it's a whole system. It's a whole system. Those who do the importation already have agreed with those who produce that you're going to buy from us. So the point is, for you to be able to supply to those people who produce the bread, it is not because Cameroonians don't want to consume bread that is made out of cassava. It is because what they have is the one that is made out of wheat flour. You understand? That is the whole thing. Because if Cameroonians are presented with a healthier version of bread, which is made out of cassava flour, or which is made out of sweet potato flour, or which is made out of a blend of all our local flours, plantain flour and all the like, maybe we can create a blend that is going to be as palatable as we choose it to be. So we have this blend, and then we use it to produce our bread. Cameroonians will consume it. Cameroonians will like it. You tell Cameroonians this is natural. This is from us. This is creating jobs. This is giving your children jobs. This is creating opportunities for young people who are hanging all around the whole place. That is what it means to build a nation. But because there is a system already put in place, those who are importing this wheat flour, they are already in a kind of an agreement with those who are producing the bread. And then they are just creating an existing crisis. There's no crisis. Like if there was supposed to be crisis, then you would tell me that we don't have farms in Cameroon. That is when I'll say, hey, yeah, we have a crisis. If you're going to tell me there's a crisis, then you're going to tell me, okay, we don't have, we don't produce cassavas, we don't produce plantains, we don't produce sweet potato. That is when there is a, that's when I can say there's going to be a crisis.
So a crisis is out of negligence?
No, it's just created by people. It's created by people. Those people importing wheat flour are connived with those people who patronize the greater quantity of the wheat flour to produce the bread and most of the foods in our bakeries. They probably have an understanding, because it doesn't make sense. Why don't you want to turn around to the local those who are producing the flour locally? Why don't you want to turn around from them? The government doesn't even need to do anything. The government just needs to sit and watch what they are going to do. So that is basically what I understand.
Is it not because the government is just watching that importers are doing what they are doing? Because how do we even explain that prices are increased without any explanation, without the ministry that is supposed to check price control? Nobody is saying nothing. Is it not because the government is just watching?
Because there's a real war. That's the problem. Because there's a real war and they're taking advantage of it. Because the government will not go and investigate to actually see that there is disturbance on the other side in Russia, to see whether there is a real challenge in getting the products into Cameroon.
Yes.
So unless maybe there's
somebody is not doing their job somewhere, because
obviously.
If we were to ascertain that previously we imported this quantity and today we can no longer do it, and even the price increase, who determines, based on what?
Yeah, well, probably they have mechanisms that they decide on those prices. Those ones are reserved to those who are involved. But then, of course, there is always a regulatory board which goes. But if they have, you see, like I keep saying, they probably are taking advantage of a real situation. Yes, it's evident there is a war in Russia, but for us to be able to link the war to the increase in the price of wheat is some work that needs to be done. But however, to me, I'm not really bothered about that. I wish that the wheat price should even continue to increase, and even increase more, so that we should come to our senses. It makes no sense what we are doing. We don't have to waste our time even worrying ourselves that wheat prices are increasing. Why is that? Because we don't even have to consume the wheat in the first place. You would find some of these companies come around, pretend as though they want to encourage people to cultivate wheat in Cameroon. Why would you want to encourage people to cultivate wheat in Cameroon when cassava is already doing well, when sweet potato is already doing well, when plantain is already doing well? Why would you want to come and pretend as though you are encouraging people to cultivate wheat locally and transform it? You know very well that it will take Cameroon tons of years for Cameroon to start producing wheat to a scale that can be able to take care of local needs. You know that very well. Why don't you take up the other tubers, the plantains, the cassava, the sweet potato, which are already at a very high scale in their production cycle, so that you can just top it up for us to be able to supply the local needs? That would be a logical solution. But what would they do? They would just want to, camouflage, to act as though they're putting in some effort. But like I said, those who are responsible for the increase in price are those people who import the wheat flour into Cameroon, and those people who produce bread.
Given that we now live in this situation, what is Afro Brains doing? Is Afro Brains also going to multiply its production, communicate better for Cameroonians to see hope in what you are doing? Are you also engaging government officials to provide more opportunity for what you guys are doing?
Okay, yeah, thank you very much. And of course, that is what Afro Brains is doing, and that is what Afro Brains has been doing. We work with the local farmers. We encourage the local farmers. From the very beginning, we have been encouraging local farmers to cultivate more of the raw materials, plantains, cocoyams, sweet potatoes. We have been encouraging our local farmers here in Cameroon to produce more, because like I said, this was predictable. So it's very predictable that it will not only affect wheat, other crops, other foods that we import will also be affected in various ways, because you see, it's a trend. The moment a certain category of importers have seen that they can take advantage of people by doing this, it will follow trend. Others can also take advantage of Cameroonians. But like I always say, Cameroonians should begin to wake up now. Look at options like Afro Brains, like what we're doing. We're producing tomato sauce. We're producing the various plantain flour, sweet potato flour, cassava flour. We're producing all these options, and we are struggling to work with our farmers to see that the prices are affordable. I discuss with several groups of farmers, and I tell them, you see, the trick is very simple. All we need to do is we team up, we make sure that our raw materials are at good prices by scaling our production, and we make sure that the price of the final product is down to earth, so that even you, the farmer, can afford it. Because if we do not work on our prices, it will be difficult for us to compete. Because if those who are baking cake and bread in the boulangeries, if they all come to us and say they want to buy flour, and they see that the prices, they cannot be able to buy from us at a certain price and produce and sell at a certain price, then you realize that they will not be able to patronize. So since we are still working at a certain limited scale, but which is possible for us to scale further, that is why we have to work as teams, and we are appealing to Cameroonians, to especially the farmers, to produce more, because it's easy for us to build machines that can transform maybe about 120 tons, 300 tons per week or per month. But the thing is, if we do produce and transform this, what about those industries that are consuming it in large quantities? Are we going to create the possibility for our local market to consume? Because sustainability of an institution or a company like this would depend a lot more on the local consumption. There could be some external market, but that external market is a miscellaneous. It's an extra. It's an added advantage, because what makes the company to be more sustainable is its local market. When it's rooted in its local market, a firm, it's going to last longer. Okay, thank you very much, Dr. TATA, for coming to talk to our televiewers this morning. Doctor, thank you for coming. Thank you very much. It's always a pleasure being here. Okay, we also want to thank you all who took time off to watch this edition of Special Edition to talk about what we are facing. I hope that the message from Dr. TATA has gone through, and that we all can mobilize to be food self-sufficient. We can, I'm sure. It's Obama who said, yes, we can. Yes, we can. I'm sure we can in Cameroon. We can produce our flour and effectively consume what we produce. Thank you to the production team, Johnson, and all of you guys. Stay blessed. Bye-bye.